So Russia's Vladimir Putin is smiling today. He will get away with an invasion of Ukraine, and in the end, he will profit from it. The land grab is actually the bonus here. I believe after looking at all of his calculated moves over the past few months and even the past few years, it is the money that he is really after, oil and gas money, and Putin will make lots of it. So as punishment for Russia's advances into Ukraine today, Germany announced it is pausing the approval of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. It's about time. That's being built to bring Russian natural gas to Germany. It needed to be canceled months ago to have any effect. I don't think Putin cares about it now. Here is how Vladimir Putin thinks. He will take Ukraine, control the gas that flows from Russia through Ukraine, gas once subjected to Ukrainian taxes. Now Putin, once he takes that country over, will have all that money too. Joe Biden gave Putin the green light when he failed to act in any strong manner in the months leading up to today. And if Putin wants validation that Biden is weak, just look at Biden's dismal performance today on the world stage.
So let's begin to, I'm going to begin to impose sanctions in response far beyond the steps we and our allies and partners implemented in 2014. And if Russia goes further with this invasion, we stand prepared to go further as with sanctions.
As with sanctions, he says. No threat of military action. Not that any of us want that. We don't. But the way to deal with Putin is you let him think that you are just crazy enough, bold enough to bomb Moscow if that's what it takes. See, that's the Trump model, Reagan model too. It's why Putin tried to take Georgia under Bush, he took Crimea under Obama, and he behaved like a scared Catholic schoolboy under President Trump. He didn't even give a dirty look during the Trump years. See, Biden's ineptitude is what is so frightening to me now, but not to Putin, though.
Who in the Lord's name does Putin think gives him the right to declare new so-called countries on territory that belong to his neighbors?
He is so focused on that teleprompter, that doesn't inspire confidence, and it certainly doesn't inspire fear in our enemies. So now we are being asked to trust an administration that made up a Russian collusion hoax about President Trump. Everybody in this administration was part of that. A leader, by the way, President Trump was, who, as I said, kept Putin and Russia in check. The same team Biden now created the impeachment hoax about a phone call President Trump made with the president of Ukraine. Another scandal concocted off of lies. And they want us now to trust Team Biden? Not a chance. Their entire history has been built on lies. May I remind you what President Trump predicted in 2018, that Russia would soon be in total control.
So we're protecting Germany, we're protecting France, we're protecting all of these countries. And then numerous of the countries go out and make a pipeline deal with Russia where they're paying billions of dollars into the coffers of Russia. So we're supposed to protect you against Russia, but they're paying billions of dollars to Russia, and I think that's very inappropriate.
I think it's very inappropriate too, Mr. President. See, President Trump warned Germany and France and the other NATO allies that Russia would own them if this pipeline deal went through. And look at the result now. Russia gets aggressive after Trump left office. So what did President Trump do to send Russia a clear message, do not advance on the world? I made a list for you. Here's what President Trump did. He bombed Syria, Russia's main oil and gas client. He forced our NATO allies to increase their spending to beef up NATO forces. He armed Ukraine. He ended the Iran nuclear deal, a crushing blow to Russia's evil ally. President Trump expanded our own nuclear arsenal, something Joe Biden is now dismantling. That's right, he's taking it apart. President Trump closed the Russian consulate in San Francisco when Russia even looked like it was getting out of line. President Trump not only kept sanctions on Russia, but he added new ones too. And maybe the most crushing blow, President Trump made America energy independent. All of that is why what is happening in Ukraine now never happened under President Trump. And after all of that, remember what Joe Biden declared before this election. This, what you're about to see, is a total farce, a joke.
This time I'm the object of their attention, because Putin knows if I am president of the United States, his days of tyranny and trying to intimidate the United States and those in Eastern Europe are over.
Oh, yeah, you're a real tough guy, Grandpa. Putin just went storming in. Now compare that, what you just saw there, that little acting job about how tough he is, with Biden's admission today. Thank you, Joe Biden. Watch this.
Defending freedom will have cost for us as well, and here at home. We need to be honest about that.
Have costs, rising gas prices, and you didn't defend freedom. You let Putin do whatever he wanted. So right there, what you just saw, thanks to a dazed and confused president, a man who is absolutely rudderless at the helm, we here at home get crushed. The stock market tanks today. It was down almost 500 points. Oil skyrockets. Global uncertainty spreads like wildfire. That's a recipe for economic disaster. Team Biden exudes weakness. Look at this staged silliness. Fully masked among the fully vaccinated in the Situation Room. Not planning a solution, but posing for a photo op with the nameplates all turned towards the camera. That is nonsensical. And when the world wants answers, once again, Joe Biden cuts and shuffles, and the media defends his absurd silence.
Thank you all very much.
President Biden there in the East Room, not taking any questions, likely given the gravity of the moment the world is now facing.
The gravity of the moment? Give me a break. You can't take any questions because he can't answer them. A moment, that announcer says, that Joe Biden enabled, by the way. Encouraged, really. Which is why the greatest national security risk that we face right now as a nation actually sits in the Oval Office.